Hi, everyone. It is 5 o'clock in New York. I'm Katie Tur, in for Nicole Wallace for this second hour of Deadline White House. President Trump has made his first remarks since losing the presidential election. The event in the White House Rose Garden was billed as an update on Operation Warp Speed. And in it, Donald Trump promised his administration would not be locking down the country again in the face of the skyrocketing number of coronavirus cases. But he did make reference to the election and this on the incoming administration.
I will not go. This administration will not be going to a lockdown. Hopefully, whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be. I guess time will tell.
Trump also promised delivery of a vaccine, but not to New York, making this attack against the state's governor, Andrew Cuomo.
As soon as April, the vaccine will be available to the entire general population, with the exception of places like New York State, where, for political reasons, the governor decided to say, and I don't think it's good politically. I think it's very bad from a health standpoint, but he wants to take his time on the vaccine.
Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York will be joining us in just a moment. But first, let us get to our panel. Associated Press White House reporter and MSNBC political analyst Jonathan Lemire is here. Also with us, A.B. Stoddard, columnist and associate editor for Real Clear Politics. Jason Johnson, politics and journalism professor at Morgan State University and the Griot, and also an MSNBC contributor. And Dr. Lippy Roy, NBC News and MSNBC medical contributor and an internal medicine physician. John, I want to start with you and the president's oblique reference to this administration. He doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. This is kind of the first signal we've seen from the president acknowledging in some way that he's probably not going to be sworn in on January 20th.
Yeah, Kay, that's the closest he's come to acknowledge that he may not be president all that much longer. Now, he caught himself in hearing that clip and suggested and then sort of backed away from it. And certainly he got nowhere near a concession. He has yet to do that. He has yet to suggest that he has lost to Joe Biden. Certainly he hasn't called to congratulate Joe Biden. And it doesn't seem like he's willing to abandon, at least publicly, his efforts to change the result, even though his advisors by the day acknowledge that there is no path forward, that he has indeed lost. But it is a slightly different tone than we heard from even others in his administration. His press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, was on TV earlier today, was asked if the president would appear at inauguration, with the context of the question being when Joe Biden is being sworn in. And her answer was, well, yes, of course President Trump will be there because he'll be accepting the oath. He'll still be president. I'm paraphrasing, but that is what she said, which is simply does not square at all with reality. But the president today, I mean, it was certainly more score settling with the governor of New York, who I know we'll hear from him in a moment, certainly touting the vaccine progress, misrepresenting the relationship with Pfizer again. But in terms of the election, no, he's still not there, even though this was the first time even he allowed a glimmer of a possibility that his time in office may be coming to an end.
You know, and we were waiting to see if he was going to take questions. He did not take questions. John, you just mentioned that Kayleigh McEnany interview on Fox Business. We have it. Let's play it.
Are you prepared to say that President Trump will definitely attend the inauguration?
Again, you know, that's many steps away here. We're talking January, and President Trump believes he will be President Trump, have a second term, and litigation is the first step, many steps away from that. It
would look pretty bad if he did not attend the inauguration. It would sound look like sour grapes, wouldn't it?
I think the president will attend his own inauguration. He would have to be there, in fact.
A.B., he will attend his own inauguration. What in the world does that mean?
Well, this is part of the demands on the people around President Trump, is that we know he consumes television, and the same question comes up: why aren't there more people out there defending me on television? And so he wants to hear people validating the narrative that the election was stolen from him by the Democrats through wide-scale conspiracy fraud, and that he remains president. And so that's why his trade advisor, and I should put that in quotes, Peter Navarro, was also on TV today saying that he doesn't imagine that President Biden will be the president in January. So it's a moot point to even talk about any of this speculation about losing the election or transitioning to a new administration. So they're doing what they can to make the boss happy and go on with the fantasy. I think that the president today was not trying to signal a hint. I think it was a slip of the tongue, and he recovered quickly because he wants to keep up the ruse that this has been stolen. He is raising money from his supporters he's lying to for his next career chapter. And I think he's going to keep it going far longer than people are hoping the pressure is building on him to do.
You know, and he's talking about potentially announcing a second run for the White House in 2024. There's also talk about a media empire that he would try to build. In the Washington Examiner today, there was an interview with the president, Jason, where he laid out what he said were his paths to victory, talking about recounts and how they're going to find Donald Trump ballots there and these states are going to get overturned. But NBC News called Arizona for Donald Trump, for Joe Biden last night. And today on my air, during my hour, we called Georgia for Joe Biden as the apparent winner. Obviously, there's a hand recount in Georgia, but he's leading by many thousands of votes. If this holds, this map holds, it'll be 306 that Joe Biden was able to get, the same electoral margin that Donald Trump had in 2016 that his team kept saying was a landslide.
Right. Well, here's the thing. At some point, some newspapers, some outlets will eventually wean themselves off of the, Donald Trump cavalcade drug of asking him questions that we shouldn't be asking him anymore. It doesn't really matter what he thinks about who won because it's obvious that he lost. It doesn't really matter if he wants to scream and yell about lawsuits that keep getting swatted down by flies by various courts, some with judges that were appointed by Democratic presidents, some with judges that were appointed by Republican presidents. I think that what has happened in many respects is some outlets, and again, Washington Examiner tends to lean slightly right, some outlets are giving him this extended mourning period the same way that some of his staff members are, when really it's not necessary. And I'll also tell you this, Katie, because I don't think even the speculation, is he going to start a media empire? Is he going to run for president again? Have we seen any indicator that Donald Trump has the kind of discipline that he could put together an entire presidential campaign again in 4 years, given his inability to stay focused on anything? He pretty much won his campaign in 2016 because he had outside assistance. He was running against somebody who was very unpopular. I don't think he has any future above and beyond getting kicked out of the White House and fighting off a bunch of lawsuits because he no longer has income. Anything else is just wistful speculation.
I might push back on that. He grew his vote total from 2016. He added more Donald Trump supporters to the mix in 2020. He's got quite a hold on the Republican Party. It would depend on how that hold sticks and whether he maintains it 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line. And that would have to do with whether he was visible in conservative Republican media circles and how much influence he still has over that. The party would likely rally behind their most popular player. I think that's still up in the air. But Jason, beyond that, why does he want the job? I mean, it seems like he doesn't really want to do it right now. This is the first time we've seen him in a week. He came out to tout Operation Warp Speed, but he hasn't really been addressing the crisis that has only escalated in the past few weeks. More and more Americans contracting COVID-19, more and more dying. It is out of control across the entire country.
Donald Trump has never really wanted this job. Donald Trump just wanted to win. Donald Trump just wanted to stick it to Hillary Clinton. He just wanted to stick it to Barack Obama. And here's the thing. Without an entire media ecosystem forced to pay attention, look, Fox News is one thing. But when the rest of the news outlets are no longer paying attention to him, as much because he's not president. He won't be able to galvanize crowds the way that he used to. And since he has lacked any real interest in doing the job. Look, if you look at what happened, Mitt Romney didn't get the nomination in 2008. He ran around the country. He gave some speeches. He put together some policy papers. Most people who have a desire to run again, it's because they didn't win the party nomination, not because they had been repudiated by a large swath of America, including states that had formerly been red, have now turned blue to tell him to go away. So between not wanting the job and not having the discipline for it, again, I think this is just an extended mourning process. There's nothing that I have ever seen in Donald Trump that makes me to believe that he could actually mount a serious challenge based on policy, based on ideology, even based on charisma, that he could do something against Joe Biden in 2024, which, again, 4 years is a lifetime in politics.
John, you want to weigh in on this?
I think yes, I do. I think both points are valid here. I think, Katie, you're absolutely right. The president is a political phenomenon right now, that he did grow his vote total. He utterly has the Republican Party bent his will and whim. But 4 years is a long time. And I think the advisors that I've talked to around him in recent days say that right now he is mulling his next options. We've certainly seen the cavalcade of tweets from the president going after Fox News, suggesting that maybe there is some sort of media entity in his future, whether that's his own, but that's a huge and complicated undertaking, or perhaps joining on to forces with OAN or Newsmax or another conservative alternative to Fox, because right now his anger is such at the Murdoch-owned property. He also, of course, his aides have told me he's going to need to make some money. We know that he's in debt. His businesses have really suffered while he was in office, and that's going to be a real focus of his. He is probably going to face some litigation and possibly investigations, from New York State and other places once he leaves office. So I think that there is a sense among people closest to him who say the president has not made up his mind, but is at least going to toy with the idea of 2024. Maybe he'll come right out and say, I'm running for president again. But at the very least, he's going to keep that speculation alive, to keep his political future alive, to maintain his relevance and hold on the media, but also with that extra attention, believing that would be a good way for him to indeed monetize this whole experience.
It totally depends on how he can keep himself relevant, and that is a big open question right now. 4 years is a very long time. Doctor, let's talk about the coronavirus as well, because something struck me about what the president said about the vaccine. He says once it does become online, once it gets online, that almost immediately, within weeks, all frontline workers, all elderly people, all of the high-risk categories for this virus will be vaccinated. Can you give me a reality check on that?
Good to be with you, Katie. By all measures, all experts are saying that distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine will be the most complex and challenging vaccination campaign in human history. It's 2 different doses. Again, it depends on which vaccine from which company, but the Pfizer one is the leading candidate. 2 different doses, 28 days apart, has to be stored and shipped at -70 degrees Celsius. It needs to be we have to triage who's going to get it. Healthcare workers, the elderly, other vulnerable communities of color. This is going to be really complicated. That is not going to happen. None of this is going to happen, forget overnight, let alone several weeks, probably months. It's going to take a long time to really carefully and thoughtfully plan this out. But if I may also just try to answer that same question that you asked Jason and Jonathan from a medical and psychiatric perspective as to why the president wants to stay. People with narcissistic personality disorder and delusional disorder seek, in fact, they crave attention. They also lack the ability to express empathy. In other words, they're apathetic. So he doesn't express guilt for what's happening to millions of Americans and craves attention. So the non-political but rather medical perspective to that.
Dr. Lippi-Roy, thanks so much. Jonathan Lemire, thank you as well, along with A.B. Stoddard. We appreciate all of your time. Jason Johnson, you're sticking around. And when we return, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo joins us to respond to Donald Trump's attack on him just now in the White House Rose Garden. Deadline White House continues after a quick break, so don't go anywhere.